The Temple Mount in Jerusalem has never been excavated, but an illegal construction project 20 years ago opened the door to some major discoveries.
Imagine a hidden truth lying directly beneath one of the most sacred places on earth, one powerful enough to challenge history books and reshape how we understand faith itself. We're talking about Jerusalem's Temple Mount, an ancient platform where Jewish, Muslim, and Christian history has overlapped for centuries. For generations, what lay below its foundations remained completely untouched. But about 20 years ago, an unexpected event changed everything, quietly opening a window into what had been buried for millennia. Before we continue, we'd really appreciate your support. A like and a subscription help more than you know. Thank you. What scientists uncovered beneath this ancient site did more than confirm long-held traditions. It revealed evidence so surprising that it could force the world to rethink history, religion, and even science itself. The discovery was kept under tight secrecy for months, but now details are finally beginning to emerge. Get ready to uncover stories buried beneath centuries of war, worship, and whispered prayers. Stories of lost underground passages and ancient inscriptions that seem to speak of a divine presence itself. Jerusalem's old city rises over the hills like a crown carved from stone. Yet, among all its landmarks, none stands taller in meaning than the Temple Mount. Known as Haram al-Sharif in Arabic and Har Habayit in Hebrew, this vast limestone platform is wrapped in legend and remains one of the most sacred, disputed, and mysterious places on earth. For Jews, it is the holiest site of all. Nearly 3,000 years ago, King Solomon built the first temple here, believed to have housed the Ark of the Covenant, resting beneath golden cherubim and filled with the presence of God. After its destruction and the Babylonian exile, the Second Temple rose on the same ground, only to be destroyed again by the Romans in 70 AD. For Muslims, this land is the noble sanctuary, the place from which the Prophet Muhammad is believed to have ascended to heaven during the night journey. At its heart stands the Dome of the Rock, built in the 6th century, still glowing at the center of the plateau. For a time, this sacred site even served as Islam's first Qibla, the original direction of prayer. For Christians, the Temple Mount holds deep significance because of its close connection to the life and teachings of Jesus. It was here that he confronted corruption in the temple courts, overturning tables and declaring the space a house of prayer, not a marketplace. Yet, beyond the visible shrines and sacred buildings, this solitary hill conceals a much older and deeper story, one hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be revealed. Its history is written not in books alone, but in layers of buried stone and secrets sealed beneath centuries of conflict and devotion. A history scholars have long dreamed of uncovering. Over time, empire after empire left its mark on the Temple Mount. The Persians allowed the Jewish people to rebuild their temple. The Greeks defiled the sacred ground. The Romans destroyed the Second Temple entirely. The Byzantines raised churches on the site. The Umayyads later transformed it by constructing the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Then came the Crusaders, the Ottomans, and the British, each reshaping the mountain, strengthening its walls, and redefining its role. Yet, through all these upheavals, one belief endured. This place is more than sacred, it is singular. Not merely a sanctuary, but a meeting point between heaven and earth. According to ancient tradition, it is the dwelling place of the Shekinah, the divine presence itself. In Jewish belief, this refers to God's own Spirit, said to have rested in the Holy of Holies, deep within the temple, between the wings of the golden cherubim. And despite centuries of destruction and rebuilding, that belief has never disappeared. That belief lives on in prayers, ancient writings, and the powerful traditions surrounding the Temple Mount even today. Yet despite the enormous weight of history and faith tied to this place, what lies beneath it has remained largely unexplored. Religious sensitivities and political tensions have long blocked full scientific excavations. Only limited efforts, such as nearby tunnel work or unauthorized construction, have ever offered brief, accidental glimpses below the surface. Even those moments suggested that something incredibly ancient is still waiting to be rediscovered. That was the situation until the late 1990s. So what changed? Excavating most ancient sites is usually straightforward. Researchers secure permits, bring in equipment, and allow the ground to slowly reveal its secrets. But the Temple Mount is unlike any other site on Earth. Beneath this sacred platform lies the spiritual core of three major world religions. Along with it comes an explosive mix of politics, power, and belief, so volatile that even a single strike of a shovel could spark global outrage. As early as the 19th century, scholars were already drawn to what lay hidden below. One of the first was British military engineer Charles Warren, who explored deep shafts, cisterns, and ancient tunnels beneath Jerusalem. What he found, rock-cut chambers, water systems, and mysterious empty spaces, only deepened the mystery. What else could be hidden beneath the surface? But these discoveries came at a cost. Soon after Warren's findings became known, religious authorities sealed off access. Digging beneath the Temple Mount was no longer just controversial, it became unthinkable. This was not simply an archaeological site, but land infused with profound sacred meaning, where science had to yield to faith. Since that time, no official large-scale archaeological excavation has ever taken place directly beneath the Temple Mount itself. The reasons are both spiritual and political. In Jewish tradition, the Temple Mount is the holiest place on earth. It is believed that the Holy of Holies, the most sacred space of the ancient temple, lies somewhere beneath the platform. Jewish law strictly forbids accidentally entering this area, a concern so serious that for generations many religious Jews have avoided even stepping onto the mount. For Muslims, the site is equally sacred. It is home to the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest location in Islam. Because of this, religious authority over the mount has long been held by the Islamic Waqf, a Jordan-based organization that fiercely protects the site. The arrangement between Israel and the Waqf is extremely delicate, and any action seen as threatening Muslim control could ignite violence, widespread unrest, and serious diplomatic fallout. That is why, even when signs of major discoveries emerge, the ground remains untouched. As one archaeologist famously said, digging here isn't just about history, it's about war and peace. Then, in the late 1990s, something completely unexpected occurred. During unauthorized construction and repair work on the mount, hundreds of truckloads of soil were removed and dumped into the Kidron Valley just outside Jerusalem's old city walls. In a single moment, thousands of years of potential history were scattered without documentation, oversight, or protection. Most people would have let that soil disappear forever. But a group of Israeli archaeologists recognized a rare opportunity. In 2004, they launched what would become one of the most unusual archaeological efforts in modern times, the Temple Mount Sifting Project. Working in a public park in East Jerusalem, volunteers carefully sifted through the discarded earth by hand, bucket by bucket, year after year. What they uncovered was nothing short of extraordinary. More than 500,000 artifacts were recovered from this soil, offering an unprecedented glimpse into thousands of years of human activity connected to the Temple Mount. Among the soil, they uncovered coins dating back to the time of King Herod, Crusader-era arrowheads, and finely crafted jewelry from the Islamic period. This was not ordinary construction waste. It was history, unknowingly carried away and discarded. And mixed within these shattered remains were hints of something far older, something deeply sacred. As researchers examined the finds, patterns began to emerge. Many artifacts were linked to ritual purity, acts of worship, and objects associated with the inner sanctuary itself. But what truly stunned them was how often items from the First Temple period appeared. an era that many scholars had long dismissed as little more than legend. This was no longer just a forgotten story, it was evidence. Proof that deep beneath the Temple Mount a hidden truth still lingered, one the earth itself struggled to conceal. What began as a simple rescue effort to save discarded soil soon became something far greater. As the dust settled and the fragments were studied, the Temple Mount sifting project took on an entirely new meaning. Researchers realized they weren't uncovering random debris. They were tracing a clear trail that led straight into the core of ancient worship. A broken shard of pottery, once cleaned, revealed painted designs dating back to the 6th century BC, the era of the First Temple. More finds followed: pieces of oil lamps, charred animal bones, and fragments of ceremonial vessels. At first, these seemed like typical archaeological discoveries. Then, something extraordinary appeared. A small, hardened lump of clay drew the attention of one team member. Worn, flat, and cracked by age, it was identified as a bulla, a seal impression once used to secure official scrolls. Under magnification, an inscription in ancient Paleo-Hebrew emerged. It read, "Galyahu, son of Immer," a name reaching out from the distant past. In the book of Jeremiah, Immer is listed as a priestly family serving during the First Temple period. This tiny seal did more than survive time. It confirmed that a real individual once lived behind a name many had considered symbolic or mythical. And it wasn't an isolated find. More bullies surfaced, some bearing names and titles that closely matched biblical records. Others were marked with sacred symbols, menorahs, temple gates, and priestly garments. These were not modern fabrications. The dating was consistent, the script authentic, and the evidence undeniable. Over time, it became clear that these were not random, isolated objects. They were shattered pieces of a once organized priestly system that had operated right here. One of the most delicate discoveries was a finely carved ivory comb. Remarkably, its teeth were still intact after centuries underground. An inscription etched along its side is now considered one of the earliest complete sentences ever found in the Canaanite language, referencing personal cleanliness and possibly ritual purity. It was an everyday item, yet deeply meaningful within a sacred setting. Then came objects directly tied to worship. A small bronze censer used in temple rituals was found, still coated with the dark residue of ancient aromatic offerings. Nearby lay pieces of delicate jewelry, likely worn by temple servants or worshippers, perhaps dropped during moments of chaos, war, or forced exile. Mixed among these First Temple era relics were artifacts from later Roman, Byzantine, and Islamic periods, clear evidence that the site remained sacred across centuries, faiths, and empires. Yet it was the oldest and deepest layer that drew the most attention. Despite long-standing claims by some scholars and political figures that no solid evidence of Solomon's temple existed, a growing body of physical proof was telling a different story. These objects were not only ancient, they were precise. They aligned too closely with descriptions of priestly roles, ritual practices, and sacred traditions to be dismissed. Each artifact pulled from the soil chipped away at decades of doubt, suggesting that this place, once believed by some to exist only in scripture, was real, active, and tangible. As archaeologists mapped where these items were found, a striking pattern emerged. The artifacts were not spread evenly, but concentrated in a specific section of the debris, hinting at something deeper below, possibly a collapsed area or a hidden space sealed long ago. The distribution suggested buried chambers and forgotten passageways that had remained untouched for more than 1,000 years. That realization changed everything. Between 2021 and 2024, a new team of researchers began combining modern technology with long-forgotten maps dating back to the British Mandate period. Their focus turned to the southern edge of the Temple Mount, near the Western Wall. For generations, British engineers, Ottoman officials, and early travelers had reported strange underground voids in this area, mentions of chambers, staircases, and hollow spaces. But for decades, these accounts were dismissed as rumors. Now, for the first time, science was ready to test them. Then, in 2023, everything changed. With traditional excavations still forbidden, scientists turned to modern technology instead. Using ground-penetrating radar, the same method used to locate hidden chambers inside the Egyptian pyramids, they began scanning beneath the bedrock. Almost immediately, anomalies appeared. Straight lines and sharp angles emerged where nature should have left only chaos. The scans suggested sealed underground chambers, buried beneath centuries of rebuilding and collapse. The team then compared this data with hand-drawn maps from the early 1900s, created by British officers who were briefly granted access during the final years of the Ottoman Empire. The match was astonishing. The same corridors, the same blocked staircases, the same unexplained empty spaces appeared on both. These were not coincidences, they were the same structures. Moving forward required extreme caution. While excavating directly beneath the Temple Mount was impossible, work near the Western Wall tunnels, just outside the mount itself, was legally permitted and already in progress. As workers carefully removed debris from ancient and Byzantine layers, they uncovered a partially buried staircase carved straight into the limestone. It descended into a long-forgotten antechamber. Inside, it felt as though time had frozen. The upper walls bore Byzantine carvings, faded crosses, carved niches, and barely visible inscriptions. The chamber had clearly once served as a Christian place of worship, likely dating to the 2nd or 5th century AD. But what lay beneath the floor was far more revealing. Just inches below the surface, researchers encountered a second foundation, one that was dramatically older. Massive foundation stones emerged, expertly cut and carefully fitted together with a precision rarely seen after the First Temple era. The craftsmanship closely matched the construction techniques found at Solomon's Gates in Megiddo, a signature of ancient Israelite engineering. This discovery changed everything. The chamber was not merely a Byzantine chapel. It had been built atop something far older, something long forgotten. Stratigraphic analysis confirmed it. This lower layer predated Herod's temple renovations, possibly by several centuries. Its hidden location beneath the mountain aligned closely with biblical descriptions of sacred spaces, pointing to a very specific and intentional purpose. And then came the unsettling realization. A second staircase soon came into view, partially collapsed and choked with rubble, descending even deeper into the rock before vanishing behind a sealed barrier. This blockage was no accident of time or nature. It had been deliberately constructed by human hands. Long ago, someone had made a conscious decision to hide this place, to seal it off as if it were a door never meant to be opened again. The question was impossible to ignore. What were they trying to protect or conceal? The chamber's position, its architectural features, and its alignment with ancient texts all pointed toward a single possibility. This may once have been part of the inner sanctuary or a passage leading to it. But the researchers weren't ready to say that publicly. Not yet. They needed stronger proof. And that proof wouldn't come from the stone walls, but from what lay beneath them, inside a water system that, by all logic, should not have existed. By this stage, the team had already confirmed that something sacred and ancient once stood on this mountain. But what followed spoke less of ritual objects and sealed rooms and more of brilliant engineering. It suggested that the people who built here were not only deeply religious, but also remarkably advanced in their understanding of construction and design. While analyzing the soil beneath the southern edge of the Temple Mount, scientists uncovered a series of connected underground spaces. These were not tombs or storage rooms. They were smoothly curved, precisely carved, and coated with an unusual waterproof plaster. As the researchers mapped the spaces, a clear pattern emerged. This was an extensive underground water system. Cisterns, channels, and aqueducts carved directly into the bedrock. It wasn't supposed to be there. Radiocarbon dating of mineral deposits trapped within the plaster stunned the team. The structures were neither Roman nor Herodian. They dated back to the First Temple period, around the 7th to 6th centuries BC. And even that wasn't the most astonishing part. What truly left experts speechless was the sheer complexity of the system. The system revealed a level of water management planning far beyond what anyone expected for its time. It was carefully engineered to regulate flow, balance pressure, and store vast amounts of water in a land that remains dry for much of the year. Narrow feeder tunnels allowed reservoirs to be filled with precision, preventing stagnation. Overflow channels redirected excess water into secondary chambers, maintaining supply while avoiding floods. This wasn't ordinary city plumbing, it was sacred infrastructure. When researchers overlaid the mapped cistern network onto ancient texts, a striking connection emerged. Several reservoirs aligned almost perfectly with locations described in the Book of Chronicles, which recounts water preparations ordered by King Hezekiah and earlier rulers to support temple rituals. One massive basin lay directly beneath an area identified in early Jewish writings as the site of an altar. This basin, coated with thick layers of ash and faint organic traces, showed evidence of repeated use. It may have played a role in daily priestly practices, ritual hand-washing, cleansing sacred instruments, or pouring libations. Its closeness to what would have been the temple's inner zones raised profound questions. For years, many scholars believed worship in the First Temple was mostly symbolic and loosely organized. But this water system told a very different story, one of carefully planned spiritual logistics, designed not just for grandeur, but for exact purpose. If the builders engineered water movement with such precision, then everything else must have been planned as well. The flow of worshippers, cycles of purification, and even the timing of sacrifices. This was not a primitive faith. It was a finely tuned system of holiness, operating with near mathematical accuracy. Most revealing of all were the aqueduct lines. When traced backward, their source channels led researchers to a specific location beneath the mountain, an area that had only recently been rediscovered after more than 1,000 years. At that point, what lay behind the sealed stone was no longer speculation. It was real. As scientists pushed deeper beneath the southern edge of the Temple Mount, past ancient water tunnels and long-buried priestly chambers, they encountered something no one was prepared for. At the end of the passage stood a sealed stone threshold. For an entire week, the excavation team worked their way toward it, carefully removing debris, documenting every inch with precision. Even so, nothing prepared them for what lay beyond that final barrier. The chamber was small, no more than 3 meters across. Its walls were carved straight into the bedrock, smooth, bare, and undecorated. Yet, what sat at its center brought everything to a halt. A round, shallow stone basin rested there, partially filled with ash. Surrounding it were fragments of burned incense, small offerings, and blackened clay oil lamps dating to the First Temple period, all arranged with unsettling care. Unlike other spaces they had explored, this chamber showed no signs of decay. It had been intentionally sealed, as if those who closed it wanted it preserved forever, untouched by time. The basin itself bore faint markings, worn by centuries but still visible under the archaeologists' lights. This was no ornament or abstract design. It was an inscription carved in Paleo-Hebrew. The words read, "He who dwells here, his spirit never departs." The room fell completely silent. The power of the inscription lay not only in its poetic phrasing, but in what it implied. The wording echoed ancient biblical descriptions of the Holy of Holies, the innermost sanctuary of the temple, where Scripture says the Shekinah, the divine presence, once resided. This was a place so sacred that only the high priest could enter, and only once a year on Yom Kippur. For the ancient Israelites, it marked the ultimate meeting point between heaven and earth. Until now, no physical object from such a space had ever been discovered. No clear evidence had ever surfaced. Specialists on the team quickly verified the dating. The oil lamps matched examples from the 6th to 7th centuries BC. The stone of the basin was consistent with the local limestone used during Solomon's era. And the inscription, its language, structure, and phrasing aligned perfectly with First Temple period religious texts, some of which had only recently come to light among the Dead Sea Scrolls. More than any discovery before it, this chamber delivered what generations of archaeologists had only imagined: physical, datable evidence of the most sacred area beneath the Temple Mount, aligning directly with biblical tradition. For the first time, words associated with the divine were found carved into stone, inside a sealed chamber hidden beneath the mount itself. This was not merely a religious artifact, it was faith made tangible. A rare moment where belief and the physical world intersected. The chamber, the basin, the ashes, every detail pointed to the same conclusion. This was the place where ancient Israelites believed the Shekinah, the divine presence, once dwelled. Scientists were left stunned. Religious leaders offered no immediate response. Even long-standing skeptics hesitated because regardless of personal belief, one reality was now impossible to dismiss. A sacred presence had once been recognized, honored, and deliberately sealed beneath the Temple Mount, and someone had left a message to ensure it would never be forgotten. But as word of the discovery began to circulate, reactions quickly followed, and not all of them were positive. The existence of the chamber sent a quiet shock through academic circles. Not just because of its age or the fact that it had been sealed, but because everything inside it, the inscription, the basin, and the remains of ancient offerings, matched descriptions that many had long regarded as symbolic, metaphorical, or shaped by legend over time. For many observers, the boundary between faith and historical reality suddenly became unclear. The findings were never fully announced to the public. Instead, details emerged slowly, whispered through scholarly networks, debated behind closed doors at conferences, and discussed privately within religious institutions. Authorities, fully aware of the Temple Mount's extreme political and religious sensitivity, have so far avoided broad disclosure. While the discovery brings clarity and confirmation for some, it also presents profound challenges for others. The Temple Mount remains sacred to Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike. Any claim that one religious narrative has been definitively proven risks sparking protests, unrest, or even violence. Because of this, officials are proceeding with extreme caution, keeping public statements vague and avoiding firm conclusions. Some Christian groups, however, view the discovery as a powerful sign, seeing it as a tangible connection between ancient scripture and the modern world, and even as a step toward the fulfillment of long-held prophecies. For them, the temple has always represented a physical meeting point between the divine and humanity, and now they believe there is evidence to support that belief. Many Orthodox Jewish leaders, meanwhile, have responded with restraint and sorrow. The possibility that the area associated with the Shekinah may have been entered or revealed is deeply troubling. According to tradition, approaching such a space without proper spiritual preparation is considered a serious violation. From this perspective, the discovery is not only sacred, but also forbidden. Behind the scenes, however, a quiet race has begun. Prominent archaeologists and physicists are advocating for non-invasive research methods, such as muon tomography, the same particle scanning technology used in 2017 to detect hidden chambers inside the Great Pyramid of Giza. Their hope is to map additional underground spaces beneath the Temple Mount without disturbing the surface or igniting conflict. At the same time, historians and biblical scholars are revisiting texts once dismissed or overlooked, re-examining ancient descriptions of temple layouts, priestly rituals, and even mystical concepts like the Shekinah, not as abstract ideas, but as physical, spatial realities. Quiet discussions about new grants and international research partnerships are already underway. A site long considered too sensitive to study may now represent one of the most significant religious and archaeological discoveries of the century. Yet for many scholars, the true importance of this discovery goes beyond its age or its implications for any single tradition. It offers insight into how ancient people organized their world around faith, how they built holiness into stone, water, and space itself. What happens next remains uncertain. Access is still limited and the political situation remains fragile. But one thing is now undeniable. We have glimpsed something real, something hidden for thousands of years, something that millions once believed stood at the very center of the world. We may not yet see the full picture, but for the first time, we are exploring the Temple Mount not from above, but from within. Thank you for watching this episode. Your support means everything to us. Please remember to like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest updates and new videos.